let's dive into one of America's most chilling and, frankly, infamous unsolved crimes. We're heading back to 1912 to the tiny, quiet town of Villisca, Iowa, where something absolutely horrific happened. An entire family and their two young guests were murdered. And the sheer brutality of it all was matched only by the strangeness, the bizarre nature of the clues that were left behind. And the crazy part, over a century later, we're still asking the same question. Who did it?
So let's set the scene. Imagine this small, peaceful town. On a seemingly ordinary night in June, a family and their two young guests are coming home from a church event. They walk through their front door just like any other night. Only this time, none of them would ever walk out again. You know, the horror of this story doesn't start with a scream in the night. It starts with silence. The next morning, a neighbor, a woman named Mary Peckham, looks over at the Moore-house and notices it's just too quiet. No smoke coming from the chimney, no kids playing outside. Something just feels wrong. So she calls Josiah Moore's brother, Ross. Ross gets there around 7:30 in the morning and lets himself in, and right away he is hit with this just unthinkable scene. In the downstairs guest room where the two visiting Stillinger girls were sleeping, the beds were just soaked black with blood. It was the first gruesome sign of the total massacre that had taken place inside that house. But this is where the scene goes from just pure horror to something deeply strange. As investigators started to look around, they found that every single mirror in the entire house had been covered up with some piece of clothing. It's this bizarre, almost ritualistic detail that just makes no sense. And the weird clues? Oh, they did not stop there. Downstairs, they find a 4-pound slab of raw bacon, just leaning against a wall. Right next to it, a broken keyring. I mean, what does that even mean? It's another baffling piece of a puzzle that just gets darker and darker. And here's the thing, the killer didn't even bring a weapon. They used one they found right there in the home. Josiah Moore's own axe was found in that same guest room. It had been wiped clean of blood and just propped up against the wall, almost like it was on display. After all that carnage, the killer locked the door behind them and just vanished. So, who were these people? To really get the full weight of this tragedy, we need to take a step back and look at their very last, very ordinary day. These are the 8 people whose lives were stolen that night. You have Josiah, a well-known local businessman, and his wife, Sarah. Then their 4 kids, 11-year-old Herman, 10-year-old Catherine, 7-year-old Boyd, and little 5-year-old Paul. And staying the night were Catherine's friends, 12-year-old Lena and 8-year-old Ina Stillinger. They had begged their parents to let them have a sleepover. Just hours before the attack, the family and the 2 girls had been at a Children's Day program at their church. People who saw them said they remembered them walking home together around 9:45 p.m., just happy, laughing, without a care in the world. It was the last time anyone would ever see them alive. Now, what's really terrifying is what investigators eventually managed to piece together about the killer's actions. It seems pretty clear that the evil wasn't just outside the house, it was already inside, just waiting. Up in the attic, investigators found 2 cigarette butts in the dust, and the attic was directly above the parents' bedroom. The theory, and it is a chilling one, is that the killer was hiding up there for hours, listening, smoking, just waiting for the entire family to fall asleep. The attack itself was shockingly methodical. The killers started upstairs with the parents, Josiah and Sarah. Then they moved from room to room, attacking the children, Herman, Catherine, Boyd, and Paul, all as they slept. And finally, the killer went downstairs to the guest room and murdered the Stillinger sisters. All 8 were bludgeoned to death with the blunt end of the axe. So, with such a horrific crime and a scene full of all these strange clues, how in the world did the killer just get away? Well, the answer, unfortunately, is that the investigation was a complete and utter mess from the very beginning. I mean, you have to remember, this was 1912. Police work was nothing like it is today. As soon as word got out about the murders, hundreds of people from town just flooded into the house. They were walking through the rooms, touching things, picking things up, basically destroying any potential evidence long before anyone even thought to secure the scene. Over the years, a few main suspects did emerge. First, there was Frank Jones, a powerful state senator and a huge business rival of Josiah's. Some people thought he might have hired a hitman.
Then you have Reverend George Kelly, this traveling preacher who gave an incredibly detailed confession, only to take it all back later, claiming he was forced. And finally, a transient named Andy Sawyer, who supposedly bragged about the crime to a railroad crew. But in every single case, the evidence was just flimsy. Nothing ever stuck.
And it's not for lack of trying either. The investigation was absolutely massive. The official case file eventually ballooned to over 3,000 pages. Just page after page of testimony, theories, and dead ends.
And yet, after all that effort, after all the grand juries and the political pressure, the final word in that massive file is the same today as it was back then. The Villisca Axe Murders officially remain unsolved.
But the story doesn't really end with a cold case file. The sheer violence of that night seems to have left a permanent mark, a scar, on the house itself, transforming it from a historical crime scene into something else. See, in the 1990s, the house was restored to look exactly how it did on the night of the murders, and it was open for paranormal tours and even overnight stays. And that's when the stories of strange happenings really started to pile up, leading to a really shocking incident in 2014, when a guest staying overnight mysteriously stabbed himself.
And the stories people tell are just bone-chilling. People who've stayed there report all kinds of things. Digital recorders picking up ghostly whispers, motion cameras capturing strange orbs of light. There are even stories of people falling into weird trances. And then, of course, there's that inexplicable self-inflicted stabbing in 2014. It just adds another layer of darkness to this place. So all of this just brings us right back to the ultimate question, doesn't it? What really happened in that house? Was this the work of a bitter rival, a random madman, a serial killer just passing through? Or was there something darker? A presence that was in that house long before the Moores ever moved in, and maybe is still there today? We'll probably never know for sure. But for the brave few who dare to spend a night in the Villisca murder house, some believe the answer is just waiting for them in the dark. They say if you stand at the bottom of the stairs and you listen really, really closely, you might just hear the faint sound of an axe handle dragging across the floorboards upstairs, almost as if someone is still up there, choosing which room to visit next.